Welcome to Silent Screams. Tonight, we delve into a chilling tale that will leave you questioning the line between reality and the unknown. Gather your courage, because this is not just a story, it's a descent into fear, an unraveling of secrets buried deep within the walls of a forgotten manor. Brace yourself, and let's begin. It all started innocently enough. A thread on Reedit, a platform notorious for strange tales and uncanny encounters, caught the attention of a curious user named Evan. The thread's title was simple but evocative: The Forgotten Manor. The original poster, who went by the username Shadow Remains, claimed to have spent a night in an abandoned estate, located deep within the woods of rural England. Their account was full of vivid, horrifying details, enough to pique Evan's insatiable thirst for the paranormal. The estate, as described, was ancient, its history steeped in tragedy and mystery. Built in the late 17th century, the manor was once a grand residence, but time and neglect had turned it into a skeletal shadow of its former self. Rumors swirled about its history, whispers of disappearances, eerie rituals, and sightings of shadowy figures. No one dared to venture there, not even the locals, who believed the land itself was cursed. Evan wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. He reached out to Shadow Remains for the exact location and, within days, found himself standing at the entrance of the manor. The path leading to the house was overgrown, the air thick with an unsettling silence. No birds sang, no leaves rustled. The world seemed to hold its breath as Evan pushed open the rusted gates. The manor loomed before him, its cracked facade and broken windows glaring down like accusing eyes. He felt a sudden chill despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. Clutching his flashlight and camera, he took his first steps toward the ominous house. The wooden porch groaned under his weight, the sound echoing in the stillness. As he entered, a musty scent overwhelmed his senses. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, and the dim light filtering through the shattered windows gave the interior an otherworldly glow. His footsteps kicked up dust, which seemed to hang suspended as if time itself had slowed within these walls. Evan began exploring, his camera capturing every creak of the floorboards and every shadow cast on the crumbling walls. The first few rooms were unremarkable: decayed furniture, shattered mirrors, and peeling wallpaper. But then, as he turned a corner into what seemed to be a study, he noticed something strange. A book lay open on the desk, its pages pristine despite the decay surrounding it. The text was handwritten, in a language he couldn't recognize. As he moved closer to inspect it, a sudden noise froze him in place, a faint, high-pitched laugh that seemed to come from the hallway behind him. Heart pounding, Evan spun around, but the corridor was empty. He called out, his voice trembling, "Hello? Is someone there?" Only silence answered. He laughed nervously to himself, chalking it up to his imagination. But as he turned back to the desk, the book was gone. Evan's unease grew with every passing moment. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision, but when he turned to look, there was nothing. Then, in the dining room, he found the table still set, as if the residents had left in the middle of a meal. Plates and silverware were covered in a thick layer of dust, but the candles, long since burnt out, seemed to have melted recently, their wax pooling unnaturally on the table. As night fell, the manor transformed. The dim light of day gave way to total darkness, and the sounds began: faint footsteps above him, whispers just out of earshot, and the distant creak of a door opening somewhere in the house. Evan tried to convince himself it was the wind, the settling of old wood, anything but what his instincts screamed it was. His flashlight flickered and died. Panic surged as he fumbled for the spare batteries in his pocket. In the pitch black, he felt the oppressive weight of the manor's silence once more, until he heard it, a whisper, directly in his ear: "Leave." The voice was icy, sending shivers down his spine. Evan spun around, but there was no one there. Desperate to escape, he stumbled into what seemed to be a bedroom. The bed was undisturbed, its sheets impossibly white in contrast to the decay around it. On the pillow lay a single lock of hair, freshly cut. Evan backed away, bumping into the dresser, which sent a mirror crashing to the floor. The shattering sound echoed unnaturally loud, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps racing toward the room. Evan darted out of the bedroom and down the hallway. The house seemed alive now, every creaking groan magnified, every shadow darker and deeper. He found himself in a grand hall, dominated by a massive chandelier that swung gently, though there was no breeze. His camera, which he'd forgotten in his panic, suddenly began recording on its own. He heard faint voices emanating from it, fragments of a conversation, laughter, and then a scream. The temperature plummeted as Evan stood frozen. His breath misted in the air as he felt something brush past him, cold and deliberate. The chandelier above him swayed harder, the creaking of its chains growing louder. Without warning, it snapped, crashing to the floor mere inches from where he stood. Evan fled deeper into the house, unable to find the exit. The corridors twisted and turned, leading him in circles. Paintings on the walls seemed to watch him, their eyes following his every move. In one, a stern-looking man's expression seemed to shift, his mouth curling into a cruel smile as Evan passed. At last, Evan stumbled upon a staircase leading to the basement. He hesitated, but the sound of heavy footsteps descending from the floor above left him no choice. He descended into the darkness, his heart pounding louder than his own footsteps. The basement was colder than the rest of the house, and the air was damp and suffocating. His flashlight flickered back to life, casting weak beams across the stone walls. Symbols were etched into the floor, strange and incomprehensible, glowing faintly in the darkness. In the center of the room stood an old wooden chair, chains hanging from its arms and legs. Evan's light landed on something that made his blood run cold, a figure, standing completely still, its face obscured by shadow. It was tall, unnaturally so, and its presence filled the room with a malevolent energy. Evan stepped back, but his foot caught on something, and he fell. As he scrambled to his feet, the figure took a step toward him, and the room plunged into darkness once more.